I just got expelled from high school for something I didn't even do. I have no future, and now everybody thinks I'm a horrible person and a fraud. See, I grew up in this ultra-conservative, ultra-religious town. The biggest building here is the church, and it was built on the backs of the townsfolk who founded it. It always filled to the brim on Sundays with absolutely no sitting room. My family's been in this town for 4 generations, and I've been going to that very church since I was a baby. I got christened there, baptized, and all my friends go there too. All the schools in the town are Christian schools, and the point that I'm telling you is the entire town is steeped in religion and has been forever. Well, all have to follow these arbitrary rules or else we'll get in trouble. The thing that they hate around here is the internet. During the pandemic, when everything went virtual, the county donated tablets and computers to attending classes. They also updated the curriculum and gave access to online resources for learning because of our books being outdated. And every parent hated it. There were a lot of heated meetings with the mayor and lots of yelling from the school board. But in the end, they had to give up, because the county would not give them funding if they did simply not follow the rules. My mom would hover over my shoulders most of the time while I was using the computer to make sure I did not see anything I shouldn't. However, I learned to hide what I was doing and browse different websites. In the years that followed, I learned the lives that we lived in this small town were very different. Other places aren't nearly as strict, and I made some online friends and they were surprised by how strict everything is around here. And, well, it sounded like my town was full of religious nuts. Looking back, they weren't wrong. Yeah, because I'm writing this, I'm hiding in the closet so my mom won't even find me. Speaking of her, she and my aunt Amelia are in constant competition over who has the best children. Amelia is the youth pastor in the church, and me and her son Elijah are both in our last year of high school. I've done far better than him in school and always get great grades and was sure to be the class valedictorian. But my aunt always claimed that Elijah's better than me because he's more involved in the church. She's basically grooming him to be the next youth leader. Whenever we're at Sunday school, she always chooses him to lead in prayer or recite the passage of the day. Whenever there's any activity at the church, she makes sure that he's front and center in everyone's faces, so all the members know that he's a righteous boy who walks with the Lord. I also go to church every Sunday, but hey, I don't participate nearly as much, which gets my mom pretty upset. But all the parents are always rushing to get their kids involved in the church, and by the time I show up, there's nothing left for me to do. Now, Elijah's super sweet around the church people. He's always asking if anybody needs water or napkins or needs to borrow a Bible. But outside the church, the boy is an absolute menace. He used to bully me relentlessly up until a year ago. The only reason he stopped is because I got friendly with the pastor's son. He was failing math and needed to get his grade up because his father wanted to send him to a fancy theology school. Before I became friends with him, Elijah used to torture me during school. He would wreck my locker with coffee, put chewed-up gum all over my clothes during gym, and lose the chain on my bike, so I would fall off of it when I tried to ride. He'd make sure that there was no evidence of him doing it left behind, but he was always close enough to see what happened and laugh at me. I knew it was him. Also, a bunch of the other kids said that he'd bullied them outright, so he was known as a menace. Still, every Sunday, I had to hear his mom go on and on about what a good boy he is, and how all the young men in the church should follow his example. Not only that, she would single people out in the youth group, and she thought that they were not behaving the way a Christian should and tell us that we should not hang around them because they would lead us down the wrong path. I've seen a lot of kids and their families shun from the church this way. There was a woman who filed for divorce because her husband was abusing her, and they constantly tried to tell her not to leave him. They would say that she must be doing something to make him so angry to hit her, and keep assuring her that the counseling things would change. But no matter what, it was not helping. When she filed for divorce and took their kids, everybody jumped to her husband's aid, offering him hot meals, prayer, telling him he would find another, better woman. After telling my online friends about this, I realized how cruel and heartless people in this town truly are. Going to church started feeling like a chore. I would barely participate because it all felt so fake after that. My aunt, she started taking notice of my lack of enthusiasm and started calling me out during Bible study, saying I was backsliding, which is hilarious because I'm at church 4 days per week. Anyways, so last week we had a routine check at school. They do these once every month because somebody was caught with drugs a few years ago, and it caused a major scandal, as you can imagine. They never announced when they're going to do it. The principal just comes over the intercom and tells everybody to leave their bags at their locker and go to the auditorium. Then we stay there for the rest of the day while they search through everyone's stuff. Joke's on them, the drugs are probably in their pockets. I distinctly remember seeing Elijah and his friends near my locker, but I thought nothing of it at the time. We spent all day in the auditorium, and at the end, the principal called a few people to his office to talk to them. One of those people was me. I thought maybe my locker was messy, or I had a book that I forgot to give back to the library, of course. So imagine my surprise or shock when he pulls out a bag of marijuana and says they found it in my locker. Guys, I'm in utter shock. I don't even know what to say. They called my parents, they called the cops. I was questioned for hours, and no matter how many times I told them, I had no idea where the weed came from. They didn't believe it. They kept asking me who my supplier was, if I'd been to the city recently, or if I'd soloed it or given drugs to anyone. All I could do was cry. They cuffed me in front of the school, in front of everyone, and put me in the back of a squad car. I've never been more ashamed in my life. I had to stay in jail overnight, and then they had me in front of the judge the next morning. They ruled that since I have no previous record, they'd give me 90 days of community service. But that's not all. The principal decided to expel me from school. My parents and a few of my teachers begged them to let me finish my senior year, but they said no because they could not risk me corrupting the other students. I've been used as an example in every sermon from both the pastor and my aunt to warn people what happens when you, quote, turn away from God. Aunt Amelia said all those times I was interested in participating in church were probably because I was high. I don't even know what I can do to prove my innocence at this point. My life is ruined. I can't even go anywhere without getting dirty looks from people. All the parents in town have told their kids to stay the heck away from me. How am I supposed to graduate and go to college, guys? My life is over. Update number 1. Hey, this may be the last time I'm around here for a while. My parents are so mad about everything that's happened, and Mom's been coming into my room every other day to dig through everything. It's only a matter of time before she finds my laptop and takes it away too. I've started my community service at a soup kitchen in the city. My parents wanted me to do it at the church, but it had to be done at a place approved by the court. My dad drives me there every day and lectures me the whole time. And when he comes to pick me up, he just pats me down in front of everybody to make sure I didn't take any contraband from the, quote, homeless druggies that frequent the kitchen. My home life is absolutely miserable. My parents made me strip all the paint off the walls and repaint the whole house. They said if my hands were too busy working, I would not have any time to get into trouble. My dad's already planning more big projects for me to do. That, along with the soup kitchen, leaves me so tired at the end of the day that all I can do is fall onto my bed and go to sleep. Church is just as miserable as home. The pastor and the aunt have preached about me, falling into the hands of the devil every Sunday since I got expelled. They dragged me to the front of the church so everybody could pray for me. I was not even allowed to be near any of the kids regardless of the gender. If that was not enough, my aunts come over a few times to dinner and criticize both me and my parents for what happened. She said if they did a better job raising me and if I was more like her oh-so-perfect son, none of this would have happened. I think this just made my parents hate me more. The time I have to breathe is when I'm at the soup kitchen. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and yeah, the people that come in there are kind of scary. But everybody who volunteers there is super nice. I took the advice of people in the comments and started looking for night schools nearby. I found a few, but they either only teach one subject or are for adults who never learned to read. Even if I find a place, I still have to go through my parents, you know. They have to pay for it since I have no money outside the little allowance I used to get before. And, well, I already know it's going to be a huge argument because they already are not happy about me going to the city for community service. But I'll keep looking around and crossing my fingers that they let me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for all of your help. Update number 2. Hey, I know it's been a long time since I've last been on here, but my mom found my laptop and took it away, so I haven't been online at all. After a ton of looking around, I found a night school in the city that suited my needs. It's like 30 minutes away, and I was attending classes for 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. It took a lot of convincing to get my parents to let me go, but I explained to them that without my GED, I would not be able to go to college, let alone get a decent job. They finally let me go after a year of night classes, and I finally got my GED. I managed to get a job for a year at a fast food place, but it was incredibly hard. I had to apply to about 50 different places before nobody wanted to hire someone with a criminal record. If I do really well in my first year, I could apply for a scholarship, which would be better than breaking my back in the service industry. As much as I love having my own money, I absolutely hate dealing with the general public, and I don't want to struggle trying to find another job. One interesting thing about this college is that it has a drug problem. All the students, faculty, and administration know there's some kind of illegal drug ring operating within the college, but everybody is very hush-hush about it, and I only know this because of the other students. Apparently, several people have been expelled because they were caught with drugs in their dorm room. You know what else is interesting? My cousin, he goes here, along with a few of the other people that I grew up with. I've crossed paths with Elijah a few times on campus. He calls me a druggie and mocks me in front of his classmates. The thing is, this campus has a mix of people from all over, so he and his gaggle of friends can't turn everybody against me as the town did. All of the friends I've made now know what happened and accept me anyways. I don't live on campus or hang around there very often anyways, but here's where things get interesting. I stayed back to work on a group presentation with one of my classmates. So we went over to his dorm to work before the library was crowded. When we went into the dorm, we saw Elijah coming out of somebody's room by himself. And he reeked of marijuana. Not strong like he just smoked or something, but you know what? I could smell it. I asked him what he was doing with weed. He just laughed at me and said that he was about to get a couple more losers expelled. Like he just straight up admitted that he's gotten me expelled and God knows who else. He shoved me out of the way and I was just stunned. I could not even say anything. When we got to my classroom dorm, I asked him what we should do about Elijah. He said nothing. Everyone who tried to report him got drugs planted in their room and escorted away by the cops. Every time they send the cops to check Elijah's room, they never find anything. I can't just leave this alone, though. Not after what he did to me. Do you know how many scholarships I missed out on because of that drug charge? I am not letting this go. Update number 3. I had to write this update quickly because I'm in church and things are hectic. So after I found out Elijah was the one who set me up and got expelled, I started asking people in classes if they knew anybody else who's been expelled because of drugs. One of my classmates is friends with a person who got arrested because they had drugs in their room. And the said person is still in jail. Just like me, they pleaded their innocence and they did not know how the drugs got there. Elijah's been doing this whole time, and just to keep the heat off him and all his criminal activities. He's basically, been making sure that no one can rat him out. But I'm not really scared of this kid, if I'm being honest, and I'm not going to let him get away with ruining my life. So here's what I did. I watched him for a while to see who he was hanging out with. It's a few kids I don't know, but also at least 2 kids from church, and if they're hanging with him that much, they must know something. So I found out that Elijah and his friends had a key to the church, and they went there every single Tuesday to, quote, clean, which is the only day there isn't something going on there. So one random Tuesday, I showed up there unannounced to, quote, help them. They were there with some strange guy, and they were talking about cells and products, and I didn't recognize the guy at all. Elijah said that they just hide everything in the shed out back because nobody goes out there anyways. Busted. I knew it was useless calling the police to the campus for him, so I called the cops to the church, which is what happened today. I tipped off the police and told them I did landscaping for the church and saw so many drugs in the shed. Before they showed up, I excused myself to the bathroom. So I wasn't present when the police first showed up. But when I came out, my aunt started yelling at me, saying I must have brought drugs with me to the church. I told her if she thought I had drugs, she could call the cops to search me right now. The police told us all to stay in the church. They called in more people, so they had the place surrounded, and nobody could leave. Everyone is scared, except me. I find this very funny. Anyways, I can hear the police out back and their dogs are barking like crazy. Last I heard, they were waiting for whoever had the key to the shed to show up. Otherwise, they would have to kick the door in, and I guess they would rather not damage church property. Elijah's been pacing up and down the aisle with his hands on his head since the police got here, and I've never been happier. A few people have come up to me and asked if I know what's going on. I told them I'm just as confused as they are. The only reason I'm updating now is because I don't know what the police will do. My classmates told of the situation where the police found drugs in the dorm room with multiple people and they arrested everyone. So I wanted to post something in case that happens. Update number 4. It's been a bit, but don't worry, I'm okay. Well, after what happened at the church, I ended up missing a day of classes and just had a lot of catching up to do in between all the chaos of the church. So, to pick up where we left off, the pastor bought the key to the church so the cops could open up the shed in the back. The drugs, they were all in there. And it was not just weed. It was all sorts of drugs. Wow. The police came back into the church and searched everyone there too. They found drugs in my Aunt Amelia's purse and hidden in the pews. You should have seen the look on her face when they pulled the bag of marijuana out of her bag. She told them it has to be a mistake. So the police lined everyone up and let the dogs sniff everyone. The dogs must have smelled traces of drugs on Elijah and his friends because dogs started barking like crazy after sniffing them. Yet when police asked them if they knew about any of drugs, they kept saying no. Then my aunt started screaming that it was me, that I've been caught with drugs at school before. So I explained to the cops that I had no access to the church, and no drugs were found on me, unlike someone else. The cops said that since no one wanted to tell the truth, they would be rounding everyone up and taking them to the station. You'd think Elijah would step forward and admit to what he's done and save everybody the headache, but oh no! He and his friends maintained their innocence, so the entire youth group took a field trip down to the station. Our parents found out what was going on, and they came down to the station too, but the police would not let them talk to us or see us. They had us in a cell in the back, and they were talking us out of 5 at a time to interrogate us. We were there for 15 hours. They said they weren't letting us go until they knew exactly who brought the drugs into the church and where they got them from. And it took that long for Elijah and his friends to confess. He admitted to hiding the drugs in the shed in his mom's church. Apparently, the police threatened to take his mom down to the courthouse to have her charged and convicted. They also linked him to other drug-related incidents, including the drugs found on college campus and in my locker room. Well, so now Elijah and his friends have been charged and convicted. They let the rest of us go. Imagine everyone's shock when they found out it was Elijah who was hiding drugs in the church. I have not seen Aunt Amelia since the whole incident, and she seems to be hiding her face from everyone. But that's everything that happened since my last update. I was worried for a minute that they'd pin everything on me simply for having a, quote, criminal record. I'm just so relieved that this whole ordeal has finally cleared itself up. Final update. Hey guys, I'm sorry that I disappeared for a bit. I was busy with final papers and exams and such, but I'm on a holiday break now. Elijah and his friends have been charged and convicted. I remember my mom telling me one of the charges was possession with intent to display. Not sure what the others were or how long his prison time will be. The judge did not let him off easy though. My Aunt Amelia was removed from her position as youth pastor, and she cannot walk a foot out of her door without people being openly hostile towards her. A lot of people's kids got arrested because of her, so I guess it's understandable. She came by the other day and told my mom that she was trying to sell her house and move elsewhere because she's obviously just not welcome in town anymore. She hasn't been to church. What's funny is so many people in town have come up to me saying they always knew I was a good boy, and Elijah was a fraud. Which is funny because they were saying the reverse after they found those drugs in my locker. The people in this town are so fake, I swear. Another really cool thing happened was the kid who got thrown into prison for drugs is free now, and the kid who got expelled from college after the drug incidents are free to come back. Elijah ruined so many people's lives with his actions. We've had lawyers approach us asking if he would be willing to file, a class action lawsuit against the county for being wrongly accused. I'm seriously considering it since I've lost out on so many opportunities because of that drug charge. When I found kind of sad about all this is not one person has even apologized to me. Not even my own parents for the way they treated me after I was wrongfully charged. The school, the police department, the church, no one. They just said it was unfortunate what happened and that we need more youth programs to discourage kids from getting involved in drugs. I think a lot of commenters were right in saying that I should leave this town. I don't think this environment is very good for me, and this will probably be the last update, but thanks to everybody here for your kind words and advice.